Hello guys, we're going to continue with the second lesson and this is about passive voice. The principal objective guys of remembering or learning passive voice is to try to change the emphasis of an idea. In order to do that, we need to change normal sentences to passive voice. But number one, something which is very important is to remember which are the elements of a sentence. So this is what we're going to cover in this first part. So number one, if you remember the basic parts of a sentence are, for example, a subject, a verb, an object, and a complement. For example, in this sentence we have Mexican companies produce tequila, mezcal, and mezcal because they are typical drinks. If you pay attention, my subject is Mexican companies, my principal verb is produce, my object is who or what receives the action. In this case, is tequila and mezcal, and the complement is because they are typical drinks. Okay, so it's important to remember and identify these basic elements for passive voice. Okay, so the next one. This local liquor source produced Torito because it is popular in common festivities. My principal subject is local liquor stores. My principal verb is produce. My principal object is Torito. And my principal complement here is because it is popular in common festivities. Okay, let's continue with other examples. It says French producers are designing incredible clothes this summer. In this case, if you look, my principal subject is French producers. My verb is are designing. My object is incredible clothes, and my complement is this summer. The government is designing an emergency plan. If you look, in this case, my subject is the government. My principal verb is designing, and my object is an emergency plan. In this case, I don't have a complement. Okay, another example. It says European countries didn't sell cars last semester. If you look, in this case, my subject is European countries. My principal verbs is didn't sell. My principal object is car, and my complement is last semester. The next one says England sold a lot of whiskey around the world. My principal subject in this case is England. My principal verb is sold. My object is a lot of whiskey, and my complement is around the world. Okay, here we have other examples. It says American native people were growing different crops last year. My subject, if you look, it's American native people. My principal verb is were growing. My object is different crops, and my complement is last year. The next example says Japan was exporting tuna fish last month. In this case, my principal subject is Japan. My principal verb is was exporting. My object is tuna fish, and my complement is last month. In these examples, it says young entrepreneurs have started innovative companies recently. My principal subject is young entrepreneurs. My principal verb is have started, and my object here is innovative companies, and my complement here is recently. In the next one says Peru has started a new project in the ruins of Machu Picchu. If you look here, my principal subject is Peru. My principal verb is has started. My object is a new project, and my complement is in the ruins of Machu Picchu. In these examples, we have Mexican companies have been producing a new kind of tequila. My subject is Mexican companies. My principal verb is have been producing. My object is a new kind of tequila, and in this case, I don't have a complement. In the next one, we have local farmers have been producing a lot of vegetables. My subject here is local farmers. My principal verb is have been producing, and my object is a lot of vegetables. I don't have a complement here. And finally, here we have this Chinese companies will create new satellites. My principal subject is Chinese companies. My principal verb is will create, and my object here is new satellites. I don't have a complement in these examples. And the last one, it says the Chinese government will launch its 5G technology in Sweden next year. My principal subject here is the Chinese government. My principal verb is will launch, and my object here is its 5G technology, and my complement is in Sweden next year. Okay, so it's very important, guys, that you identify each of these elements so you don't have problems while you create passive voice sentences. Okay, now we're going to practice how can we make this passive voice with different tenses. Okay, so if we want to change the emphasis of the principal idea, it's very simple. For example, in this case, we're going to check the basic formula. For passive voice, the basic formula is the verb to be in the correct tense and the past participle. For example, in this case, it says Mexican companies produce tequila and mezcal because they are typical drinks. This is in present, so the form of the verb to be is are. So in this case, my subject becomes the object and my object becomes the subject. For example, you can do this. Check the position. Tequila and mezcal now is here. Then my principal verb is, in this case, the verb to be. Tequila and mezcal is plural, so I have to use are. And the past participle of produce is regular, so is produced. So you can say tequila and mezcal are produced. Then I move Mexican companies, in this case, by Mexican companies. And my complement, always the complement is in the same position, so don't move, do not move the complement. The complement is in the same position. So if you pay attention here, guys, you have this. How look in Spanish, it says compañías mexicanas producen tequila y mezcal porque son bebidas típicas. And now in passive voice, the only difference is the emphasis. It says tequila y mezcal son producidas por compañías mexicanas porque son bebidas típicas. So if you pay attention, it's the same idea. The same idea. The only difference is the emphasis. Another example in present, it says local liquor stores produce Torito because it is popular in common festivities. So how can we change it to passive voice? So we have Torito. In this case, we have is produced by local liquor stores because it is popular in common festivities. So if you pay attention, in this case, I change the emphasis. But these ideas are the same. These two ideas are the same. The only difference is the emphasis. In the first one, my emphasis is in Mexican companies. In the second, my emphasis is in tequila and mezcal. In the next example, local liquor stores is my emphasis. In the second, my emphasis is Torito. So check, this is the formula for present simple, the verb to be and the past participle. Okay, now let's continue with passive voice, but in present continuous. Okay, in present continuous, the formula is very simple: is, are, being, and the past participle. For example, check this example says French producers are designing incredible clothes this summer. So we remember we changed the position and you have incredible clothes are is plural, being designed. Design is the past participle of this. Then by French producers this summer. So remember, in this case, we change the position and we change the emphasis. Okay, another example, it says the government is designing an emergency plan. So in this case, we change an emergency plan is, remember, being, because it's singular, designed by the government. So check, guys, this is the principal formula for passive voice in present continuous. Okay, in past simple, the past participle or the formula of passive voice is was, were, and the past participle of the principal verb. For example, in this case, it says European countries didn't sell cars last semester. So we have to say cars. In this case, didn't is negative, so the negative form is was not, wasn't, or were not, or weren't. So in this case, we're going to use weren't sold. Sold is a past participle. Then by European countries last semester. Okay, then the next one, it says England sold a lot of whiskey around the world. In passive voice, you if you want to change the emphasis, you say a lot of whiskey. In this case, it was sold by England around the world. Okay, so remember, guys, this is in passive voice in past. Okay, then in past continuous. Okay, in past continuous, we have American native people were growing different crops last semester. So in this case, in passive voice, to change the emphasis is different crops. Check, in this case, the formula is was being, were being. Crops is plural, so we have to use were. So you have to say were being, and the past participle is grown. So different crops were being grown by American native people last semester. In Spanish, this idea says nativos americanos estaban sembrando diferentes cultivos el semestre pasado. And in passive voice, when I change the emphasis, this idea says diferentes cultivos estaban siendo cultivados por nativos americanos el semestre pasado. So if you pay attention, it's the same idea. The only difference is the emphasis. Okay, another example, it says Japan was exporting tuna fish last month. So in this case, you can say tuna fish was being exported by Japan last month. So in this case, this is passive voice in past continuous. Okay, now in present perfect, the formula for passive voice is the verb to be, which is has been or have been, and the past participle. For example, in this case, you have young entrepreneurs have developed innovative companies recently. So you have to change. It says innovative companies. In this case, it's plural, so you have to say have been developed. This is the past participle by young entrepreneurs recently. Remember, the complement is always in the same position. Then the next one, Peru has started a new project in the ruins of Machu Picchu. In this case, you can say a new project has been started by Peru in the ruins of Machu Picchu. Okay, so remember, this is the formula: has been, have been, and the past participle of the principal verb. Okay, now in this case, we have present perfect continuous. For example, you have Mexican companies have been producing a new kind of tequila. In this case, you can say a new kind of tequila. Check the formula is has been or have been, and the past participle. So you can say a new kind of tequila has been being produced by Mexican companies, and that's it. In Spanish, this idea says compañías mexicanas han estado produciendo un nuevo tipo de tequila. And in passive voice, this idea is un nuevo tipo de tequila ha estado siendo producido por compañías mexicanas. So it's the same idea, the only difference is the emphasis. For example, this one, local farmers have been producing a lot of vegetables. In this case, you can say a lot of vegetables. Vegetables is plural, so you have to say have been, then you have produced by local farmers. So it's the same. In Spanish, this idea says granjeros locales han estado produciendo, cultivando muchos vegetales, o muchos vegetales han estado siendo producidos o cultivados por granjeros locales. So this is in present perfect. Okay, now finally in future you have this idea. It says Chinese companies will create new satellites. In this case, the formula is will be, or in negative, will not be. So in this case, you can say new satellites will be created by Chinese companies. And another example, the Chinese government will launch its 5G technology in Sweden next year. So in this case, you can say its 5G technology will be launched by the Chinese government in Sweden next year. So if you pay attention, guys, passive voice, the principal use is to change the emphasis, and what you need to do is to pay attention to the elements of a sentence and try to remember the formulas, the basic formulas. With practice and more practice, you can do it. So I'm going to give you some material so you can practice. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much and see you next time. Goodbye.